Welcome to me giving an update on the CEP Omnispeeds. So I put about 300 miles on these bad boys before I absolutely destroyed them. Like really bad. I was one of the first people to get and review the CEPs, which was pretty cool. I was able to get a hold of these just because my local fleet fee was like one of the retailers that hopped in on it. So that's also another reason where I always advocate for like shopping local if you can, like check in with your local running store, because a lot of local running stores will have, you know, some sort of relationship where they'll always try to pull to get shoes in early. So if you know something's coming out, you know something's releasing. A lot of times your local running stores work really, really hard to get you new shoes, to get them out before you can buy them online. If you can, always check in with your local running store first before you just buy it online or whatever, because it's going to benefit them. It'll benefit a small business owner who generally really cares about running and the running community in your area. And a lot of times you'll get really cool finds like the CEP Omnispeed, which I was able to get basically before their US like online release. They only had them in about 13 stores nationwide. One that was close to me when I was still living in Connecticut, they had a single one in my size, and that was pretty cool. So got them, put about 300 miles on them until I absolutely annihilated them. And it's not because of the 300 miles that they fell apart. It was because of the use case. So let's talk about that a little bit. Basically, the Omnispeeds are a really special type of shoe. I kind of call them like the future of running in a way. So they have this double P-backs plate. They call it Bowtech, and that is enhancing your running efficiency, your running economy, and your stride and geometry. Now, with that, there is supercritical foam. I actually probably should show you this on the pair of shoes that is not absolutely cooked. Although these are still wet from my 126 half marathon, which I'm kind of proud of. So then they got supercritical foam right here, right here. You can see from the bottom, it is like two completely different masses of foam, so there's nothing in the middle. This is a cutout probably to save weight. And then there's even a little piece of supercritical foam kind of in between the bow, which almost acts as like a little springboard. And then the upper is much like an F1 race car. You sit down into it, you get strapped into it. Probably should not hold the shoe in front of my face. It fits really well. It's got a bunch of different gusseting, so it comes up at the bottom, then there's an overlay that's coming up from the sides to hug your midfoot, and then the upper is a little bit different as well. There's basically 3 different zones that all can have different tension that your foot gets locked into. Padding in the back is solid, geometry is solid, and you sit down into it, which is a really, really interesting feel. When you first put it on, it almost feels like a negative drop shoe in that, as you can see, this bow molds to the geometry, the natural curvature of your foot. So your arch is going to sit here, your heel is actually going to sit below your arch, and then this has a little bit of an angle, so you think of your foot sitting just a little bit like this as it comes down this way. That is the natural geometry of your foot. And because of that, it feels really weird, because most of the time when you put your foot into a running shoe, the bottom of the running shoe is just flat. They have done a ton of studies to enhance your running economy. The grip is super solid. It has these little, I think they're not really calling them lugs anymore. Basically, it has like 1 millimeter, maybe 1.5 millimeter lugs that go on it. Yeah, it's a fantastic amount of grip. The shoe is not light. It's not absurdly heavy. Maybe it is absurdly heavy. It's not light. I would put this in the super trainer category very solidly. It's not really a race shoe because it doesn't have that really light, springy feel, but it's definitely not like a daily trainer in that inexpensive, pretty simple, just works. Unlike anything I've ever ran in before, truly. So CEP has done a ton of testing and has really gone out of their way to reinvent like what a running shoe is. And the reason that I say it's like a super trainer, but like kind of not, is just because it's so different. Like I wore this for my recent half marathon PR. I just had a 13-mile threshold workout for the day. So I warmed up in these. I ripped 13 miles hard and fast, and then I cooled down in these, right? And I can take these on an easy run, especially on a day where I feel really tired and my stride just falls in line. My efficiency is through the roof. I actually notice like my heart rate on runs where I wear these is usually lower as well, just because it is like such effortless running. At the same time, you can run really fast in them despite them not being the most streamlined, aggressive, lightest thing ever. And despite all that, you feel really connected with the ground, you know, as shoes, especially in the 2025 market, have become stacked and stacked and stacked higher and higher and higher. These maintain feeling really connected with the ground with it's kind of crazy to call this moderate stack of supercritical foam at this point, but in 2025, this is a moderate stack of supercritical foam. Fun lesson here for everybody. You may ask, what's supercritical foam? So supercritical foam is basically when at the injection point of the foam, they also introduce nitrogen, right? And so when it's being molded, they inject nitrogen bubbles into it. And what does that do? So the overall amount of foam, the overall density of foam is a little bit less because it traps the nitrogen bubbles. Now that makes it lighter. It also makes it more responsive because you do have that actual nitrogen bubble in there, like a cloud or something, like a trampoline, something of that nature that's trapped within the foam. And it creates an extremely even density across the entire molding. So in the old days, running shoes used to have like hard spots and soft spots, and you would get a pair of shoes, and this still happens sometimes, depending on the brand, the foam, the type of shoe, whatever. You sometimes still get shoes where you say, this pair of shoes was really good, and then I bought literally the exact same pair of shoes in the same color, in the same size, and they just don't feel the same, even though I've already broken them in. That is something that supercritical does a really good job at mitigating, and it creates like a very, very even, consistent density across all of the foam. So that's a little history lesson of what supercritical foam is. That's a little overview of the CEP Omnispeeds. If you want something that like really goes into a bit more depth, you can watch the other video that I have on it, but that's only for the real nerds out there. I will say, because of the F1 race car style fit on these, if you are wide-footed, I don't think they make a wide version, so you may just want to size up. You know, I have extremely long, narrow feet, so for me, it's a solid fit, and I do cinch it down, as you can see, quite a bit. You can open this up way more, but at the end of the day, you know, your width of your toe box is your width of your toe box, so you may have to go up if you have a wider foot. I guess something that's also worth mentioning is that though I'm completely flat-footed, like I have no arches, I've done all of the exercises, I've done the towel curls and all that fun stuff to strengthen my feet. Your boy has no arches whatsoever, and I just never have, and they're never coming back. Regardless of that, even though this does have a natural arch built into it, and your foot sits right on top of this bow and molds down into it, I've never had any discomfort. So, worth noting. You definitely cannot put any sort of orthotic in here, but it doesn't seem like you would need to, unless maybe you have like really, really, really high arches and need a lot of support for that. That's the overview. Now we're gonna talk about what happened with this pair of CEP Omnispeeds and how they fell apart, if you can see that. Oh, this is the one that has the hole in the toe, and the other one is even worse. The other one, I don't know if it's gonna show up on camera, has this like dent right here. I don't even know how the foam is like permanently dented like that. This is basically completely torn off. So how did that happen? Well, I took them on a trail run.
What you got there, Zave? Some rookie juice?
Okay, all right, hold on.
Some rookie juice?
Don't call it rookie. It's not my fault. And in CEP's marketing, originally, it said that these were road and, I don't think it said light trail, but it said something like tightly packed surface, something of that nature. CEP is a German brand, so You also have to account for the fact that things are being translated from German. They had a couple reels of people running on like gravel roads and things like that in them. And I figured, coming from the East Coast, moving to the West Coast, if you're an East Coast trail runner, West Coast trails are easy in that they're not as technical as consistently as most East Coast trails. Basically, almost every East Coast trail that you're gonna find is going to be through the forest. It is going to still be wet, no matter how long ago it rained, because it rained at least within the past 2 weeks. It is going to be a ton of rocks and roots. It is going to be very slippery, and it's going to be like that the entire time. So you're just going to be dancing the entire run. And that's just how it is. When you come to the West Coast, there are a lot more smooth, really runnable trails that have technical sections, and there are rocks and roots throughout, but it is not as consistently and densely technical. So in my mind, I said, that's a tight packed, easy trail. Just because of where I came from to where I'm going, I'm like, yeah, it's a tight packed, easy trail. These things do truly climb like no business. Like that Bowtech, the way it increases your running economy, you can climb up hills like nobody's business. It's crazy, honestly. Like it almost doesn't feel like you're going up a hill if the incline is not that steep. It's very impressive. So I was like, all right, I'll take them out. You know, it's a West Coast trail. It's not that technical. It's pretty easy. I'll take them out. And well, I blew them up, as you can tell. Like, I really blew them up. A lot of people were like, well, that's not a trail shoe. I was like, okay, well, it said like easy, off-road, gravel, whatever. Is it that different? Apparently it is that different. And since they've changed their marketing. So CEP actually reached out to me and they said, hey, what did you do? And so I told them, and they were like, yeah, listen, we're really sorry about that. You know, we never really meant to advertise it as any sort of trail use whatsoever. And in translation, some of that got a little bit lost, where it really, you know, we have a lot more roads that aren't just like smooth asphalt roads. You know, everywhere in Europe is very much so like that. And that's kind of what that's basically what we meant. Not trails. It is not designed for trails. And so they have since updated that, not like rebranded, but they've just been much more clear about the meaning versus like when it had just first hit the US market. And they said, listen, we're really sorry, but we will send you another pair. And then in the letter that they had in the other pair, they were like, roads only, please. I was like, yes, I'm sorry. My mistake. So there was a bit of a misunderstanding there. At least in that experience, CEP, they come off as a great company who really cares about their entry to the running shoe market, because if I haven't mentioned, this is their first running shoe ever. They're primarily a compression company. So all of my socks, I wear 2 pairs of socks when I run because of my little baby ankles. And so that level of compression really helps with my stability. And so that's primarily their market, was the compression, and now they're branching out into some more performance sportswear, like tops, like shorts, things like that, as well as their first shoe. So they come off as a company that really cares about their supporters, really cares about their entry to the market in that way, and is willing to, you know, kind of go out of their way for you, which is really cool. That's also something that you love to see when people first enter the market, is the accessibility that they have. I deeply appreciate them sending me another pair, because they are $200. It is a pretty high price point. They actually might be $225. $225 is a lot of money for a pair of trainers, but you also have to consider that they are kind of in line with that like Asics, Super Blast, Adidas, Boston 13, which is like one of the sweetest. The Evo SL and the Boston 13 are one of the sweetest deals on the market. We can have a whole separate video about that. But it is that do everything super trainer. You can race in this, you can do your easy runs in it, you can just do everything in it, except for a trail run. So it was really cool of them to send me another pair, so I wasn't shelling out another $225, and I appreciate that a lot. So this has basically just been an update As to how they performed, well, over the 300 miles, I didn't really notice much wear and tear at all. These are beat because of a very specific circumstance, which is outside of their use case. But really, I mean, yeah, there was a little bit of wearing down of the rubber, but not a ton. There was still a lot of grip. Supercritical foam does settle in over time. You do have to run, I usually say about 50 miles on a pair of supercritical shoes before that compression really molds into where you want it to be and feels really natural. It did do that, but it didn't compress so much that I was like, okay, it's time for these to go. You know, whereas I have run a lot of miles in the Hoka Skyflow that also has supercritical foam. Everybody has their own different formulations of supercritical foam, but it's all that same process that I talked about. Hoka's supercritical foam, you get about 325 miles and they are beyond kicked. They're just done. But for that 325 miles, they're great. These over 300 miles didn't notice that they were going in that direction. Upper held up solid. Like I said, this just tore apart from the kind of quick, rapid foot movement of trail running, this hole in the toe here. That's been my update. That's been my thank you to CEP. I think that these are still a great shoe. I don't want to say one of the best deals on the market because it is expensive, right? But I think it's by far the most advanced technology aspect shoe on the market. There's nobody else who's really doing this. Yes, Asics has the Ray that's coming out, and that's a really advanced foam and it's really light, and Puma just released, or I mean, it's been a couple months now, the Fast R3, and that's been shown in a couple studies to increase your running economy by 3% over an Alpha Fly and all these fun things. But they're all like very much within the line of natural progression of what is like a safe level of innovation, whereas this is really out there. This is really out there. It's doing something really different, and it's doing it really, really well, which is rare for a first entry to the shoe market. It's an absolute workhorse. As long as you don't take it on the trails, keep it on the roads. I think it's certainly worth trying if you can get your hands on it. They have a lot of pretty colors, pretty big draw. The amount of people I've talked to, they're like, yo, I pick running shoes for their colors. To me, that's so crazy because I'm such a nerd that it's all about like what it does and how it does it and all those things like that. Like, I don't care how ugly it is, I'll wear it. That's not how everyone feels, but these are also pretty. There's this, there's like an orange, there's like a purple. They all have this kind of like ombre to it where it's like lighter in the front and darker in the back, or it'll be like one color in the front and transition to the other color. So I think they're pretty attractive and futuristic looking. To be fair, I probably would have chose the pink purple, but this is all they got when you got some size 13 clompers. Score, like 9.8 out of 10. I would love for them to be durable enough to take on light trail. Everybody says that's dumb, but the reality is most people who are trail runners, especially when you're on the West Coast and there's much more of a culture of having access to trails, just wear their road shoes on the trail because the trails are not that technical. So a lot of normal people have one pair of shoes. They don't really need like a pair of trail shoes, or all they have is a Hoka Challengers, which is just the Clifton with like 2mm lugs on it. Like, it's not anything crazy and you're not gonna blow them up. So I would love to have a little bit more durability, but overall, I think they're attractive. I think that they have tons of innovation, and I think that they hold up really well and do all the things really well. Let me go get a cat. He was awoken from a nap for this, so I don't really know how he's gonna feel about this. Hey kid, we need your opinion. Okay, CEP Omnispeed, yes, no. Vibes? Vibes or no vibes? Oh, okay, he likes it. He's into it. He didn't run away or shake of disapproval. So apparently Babs says thumbs up.